everybody, I think, received a leaf. Did you receive a leaf? Just lift it up so I can see. Everybody received a leaf. And there should be 6 or 7. Was there 6 now?
I think it's
6. 6 different leaves that are here. So I wanted to do something to kind of have a little moment of get acquainted with each other. So this is serving a dual purpose tonight. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to find the people that have the leaf like yours. Once you've found those people, then kind of, we'll let you go back to your original seat, okay? But once you've found those people, kind of sit with them, make a group, whatever, and then we'll give you further instruction from there. Okay, so first instruction, find your people.
All Canadians.
Yeah, you find a group, kind of separate yourself out, so you know, you are rather than all one big lump. You gotta call Okay, let's go to this group.
We're all multilingual, bilingual plus, and we like to learn.
So we're the smartest group.
We're all humble.
Yeah, you do.
Let's go to our verse from tonight. It's Revelation 22. Revelation 22. I'm going to connect several verses tonight that you may never have thought about a connection between these verses. I'm not a theologian, but I do see a connection. Revelation 22 verses 1 and 2. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which we understand came up actually together over the river, bearing 12 manner of fruits, yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for what? The healing of the nations. Now this afternoon when we went out leaf gathering, isn't that a beautiful branch? It's amazing. I love it. It was not our intent to pick this branch. And just in the process, I was pulling it down so I could get to the leaves, and it came off. But it's just beautiful. I don't know if you've ever taken any time to just sit and consider a tree. What it's like. You know, you think about trees. Well, trees, they're all trees, right? But all of their bark is different. All of their leaves are different. When I was in the academy, I had the opportunity to take a course on botany. And we learned how to figure out what trees were in the winter time when they didn't have any leaves. Now most of the time we figure out what a tree is by its what? Leaves. By its leaves. We look at its leaves and we say, oh, that's a maple tree. Or that's whatever the other trees are that we had, a sweet gum, or oak tree, or sycamore, or whatever it is. We look at the leaf and we know, but there's so many other things to the tree that can help you know what the tree is. The bark, you take off the the leaf, and it has bundle scars in the leaf, and you can, the way those bundle scars are made, help you know whether it's this kind of a tree or that kind of a tree. The fact of whether they come off opposite or whether they come off alternate. And there's all kinds of ways to look at the tree, and they're quite amazing. I mean, I prefer trees with leaves on them, definitely. But it was very interesting to learn about those kinds of trees. So the tree of life, the leaves of the tree of life. Now we know this is beautiful, but we haven't seen anything yet till we see the tree of life. The tree of life. So I want you to hold on to that thought that the leaves of the tree of life are for the healing of the nations. And I want you to turn back to, well, before you get there, it's good to look at your notes. It was very interesting. I was reading the Ellen White comments on these verses in my study Bible. And there is an indication that this healing isn't just something that happens once we get to heaven. We can actually experience the healing of the leaves of the tree of life now. And basically, she says that Christ was the tree of life. He is the tree of life. So now let's turn to the text, Galatians 6. I'm going to go backwards to Galatians 6. Kind of a little bit different thought. And then tie them together as we move to our third text. This is Galatians 6, and it's verse 1. And it says this, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual do what? Restore. Restore. Such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted." Probably you are aware in your life, whether it's you that is experiencing it personally or whether it is you that is seeing other people experience it, but you're aware of difficult relationships. Is anybody here aware of those things? Yeah, you are aware of difficult relationships, strained relationships, damaged relationships, damaged people. You are aware of that. So here it says to do what? To restore. Usually damaged relationships, damaged people come from some kind of being overtaken in some kind of fault. Somebody else's fault, your own fault, but some kind of fault, right? And so it says, ye who are spiritual, restore. What does that mean? What does that mean to restore? And we had, I don't know, maybe I should ask Michael for permission to talk about this.
Yeah, go ahead, probably.
Okay. Well, we had an incident on our campus recently last Sunday where Michael was burned 20% of his body. And praise the Lord, he's here with us tonight.
Amen.
And in that experience, I had the opportunity, I guess you could call it the opportunity of being right there. Not when it happened, but just very soon after it happened, to try to, help and do what needed to be done. And after all of that was over and the ambulance had come and he was on his way to the hospital and we had organized a few things, Miss Gabby and Reese and I went to the hospital. And on the way there, Reese asked a question. It was a good question. But it made me stop and think. He said, "Mrs. Holland, what was your, I think it was goal? Or what was in your mind, what were you trying to accomplish during, working with Michael? What was it that you were trying, what was your goal? What were you trying to accomplish?" And I had to think about that a minute. What was it that I was trying to accomplish in that? Because sometimes you're caught up in the moment and you're just trying to do whatever needs to be done, right? And so I was thinking about that as he asked the question, and basically what I was trying to accomplish was to do two things. That which would preserve life, because there was the slight possibility that if you went into shock, there's a possibility of life being lost. Okay, so one of them was to preserve life, and that was a top priority. And the second one was to begin the restoration process, the restoration healing process of a very damaged chest, arms, and how to do that. But those were the goals, to preserve life and to bring healing. And one of the things that we did to bring healing was that I had frozen a bunch of big aloe plants. And I went home and got them, stuck them in the microwave, and thawed them out. And in the meantime, Miss Gabby was calling 911, and they were telling her absolutely do not put anything on there, nothing but water, which she had already done. Immediately when it happened, after the shirt came off that was on fire, he was put in the shower, and the water there. But so that was really the first thing of restoration: get off the burning shirt, put out the fire, put the water on it, and now we were going to put aloe on it to start that healing process. And the 911 was just absolutely against putting anything on. Absolutely do not put anything, nothing but water. And they went over and over and over. We went ahead and put the aloe on. What's that?
Praise the Lord.
And and I can understand. I'm sure they found some interesting things put on burns, and they can make things worse instead of making things better. So I can understand that, and I have no problem with that. But the first thing the paramedic said when he came in was, "What did you put on there?" And we said, "We put aloe." And he said, "Oh, okay." He was fine with that. But the idea to start the healing process and to preserve life, to do that which will preserve life. And first of all, in order to do that, they had to put the fire out, right? And if you're going to preserve life and the trailer and everybody else's life, the fire had to be put out. And that was done in however it needed to be done. Whatever needed to happen, that needed to happen first. And that did happen. And I want you to think about this in a relationship situation. Preserving life. Sometimes when you're trying to preserve life, you may do something that you wouldn't do otherwise, right? Normally, Miss Gabby wouldn't be tackling my husband, right? And throwing laundry on top of it. That's just not normally what she would do, okay? But in that situation, it was going to preserve life. And that was needed. And so in this restoration, there is the preservation of life, and then there is the bringing of healing into the relationship. I think there's one other thing that was important in that situation, because for me, and where I come from and how I think and my basic philosophy or whatever, I'm not one to just immediately call an ambulance. Okay, I know they're expensive. There's just different things. I'm just not one to do that. Let's do what we can do, and then let's go from there, So that was not my first thought. Looking back on it, it probably should have been my first thought. The minute I walked in, saw him, said, please call 911, and let's, do whatever. But I didn't do that immediately. And so then Miss Rita came in at some point. I think she followed me over or something anyway, and she came in and she took one look at him and said, have you called 911? No, what a good idea. Mom, do you want us to call 911? Yes, let's do it. So I think the lesson is to be willing to receive instruction. To recognize when you need it, and to be willing to receive it when it comes. And then to act on it. That was valuable. And I in that situation, that worked, but I'm not always willing to receive instruction. Anybody else here? That way, I'm just not always all that willing to receive that. But be willing to accept and seek help and advice. I think that's so important when it comes to the restoration and the healing of relationships. Recognize when those things they need help, and be willing to get it. Be willing to ask for it. Be willing to look for it and see where it is. So important, that preservation of life, the bringing of healing, and the being willing to accept and seek help and advice. So now let's go over to John 15. John 15. John chapter 15, and we're looking at verse 5. There's so much in John chapter 15. But verse 5 says this, I am the vine, and ye are the what?
Branches.
The branches. Ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. Now what's going to happen to this branch? It's going to die. Yeah, it's going to die because it's not connected to what? To the rest of the tree. It's not connected to life. It's unfortunately, it wasn't my goal to do that. But yeah, it is going to die because it doesn't have that connection. But here's what I want you to think about. In order for this branch to be to have these leaves, it has to be connected to what? The tree, right? In order to have the leaves, it has to be connected to the tree. What do you think of when you think of this fruit that is produced from this connection? What do you think of when you think of the fruit that is produced from this connection? Talking about this connection here. I am the vine, ye are the branches, he that abideth in me. That's connected to me, just like this branch is connected to the tree. The ones that are connected are going to produce the fruit. They're going to produce the fruit, and it says, without me, you can do nothing. What do you think of when you think of that fruit?
His fruit.
What's that?
His fruit.
His fruit. Okay? The fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, etc. Okay? You look like you're going to say something? No?
No, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. So I would like to suggest tonight that the fruit, it's not the only fruit. There's lots of fruit. Okay? But the connection between John 15, and if you have your Bible, I'm going to go back to Galatians 6. The Galatians 6 is the fruit. of that connection. Galatians 6, verse 1, Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are what? Spiritual. The ones that are connected, right, are the ones that are spiritual. And the fruit that comes from that is what? You are going to restore. You are going to restore other people. You are working to preserve life and restore and heal other people and relationships. That is the fruit. It may not be the only fruit, but it's a fruit that we don't often think about. That we don't often think about as that connection between the branch and the vine, or our connection to Jesus. Those connected to the tree of life, which is Jesus, become a healer. They become God's hands in the healing of the nations. Those leaves, those fruits, those leaves from the tree of life, as you're connected to Him, you become that healing person. That life which helps to preserve life. That life which helps to restore and helps to heal. And there's so much about this that we won't go into tonight, obviously. But I wanted to share that connection with you and that thinking process. All of us know of hurting relationships and hurting people and damaged individuals and damaged relationships. And how can we be a part of bringing life and restoration to our families, to our friends, to our communities, to whoever it is we are in association with, as we are connected to the tree of life? We become an extension of the tree of life. And healing leaves for the healing of the nation. Let's kneel for prayer.